So today I decided to start a small painting, and I'm using my little plein air box, my 6 by 8 inches, that's the panel, thumb box. I thought I'm going to start by working from a picture on a computer screen. And I picked this scene here from the Costa Brava. It's not the most interesting in the sense of I'm going to see if I'm going to try to keep it simple, to pick out the things that I'm thinking are captivating me most, or I find the most appealing. And at this point I also want to show you I've been recently doing a lot of quick little studies in a sketchbook. This is more on a heavy-duty paper, but all of these are done at this point, not plein air, but they are done from the computer screens. But many times when I'm feeling I'm a little bit or I got a little bit rusted in my painting, then I thought, well, I'm doing a lot of these quick sketches and really focus more on the simplicity and, you know, what is important that I want to show, and not necessarily go in all of the detail. But it's kind of a good point of getting back into painting if you haven't done it for a little while. So what I'm trying to do is, with this one here, I looked at the overall color range, and I felt like I don't necessarily need to start out with a complete color range of all primary, cool, and warms. So I analyzed the scene, and I felt like it was overall mostly bluish or cool in tone. And then you have the few spots that are where the sunlight hits the areas that are a little bit warmer, and then I need a little bit of a warmer tone in the sky here. The ocean is kind of going from a blue more towards a warm tone. So I decided to start out just with a yellow ochre, trying to even leave the yellow out in the beginning to see if I can get by without yellow until I decide that I really need it. Then orange, cadmium orange, has become one of my most important colors in plein air painting. Burnt sienna, then a cool magenta, rose red, and a ultramarine blue, and then I will see how far that takes me. I also, using at this point, it's not really necessary right now here in this particular demo, but when I go plein air painting, I'm using the Griffin Alkyd white, because it speeds up the drying. So I'm having that here, but I added also a regular oil titanium white, because many times the Alkyd paints don't have quite the same mixing power as a regular white. So I'm using a marker to sketch out the scene. Start with the horizon line, block that in, look at the main spots or the main shapes. I'm not going to do a lot of talking. If something comes to my mind, then I'm going to talk and share that. And maybe at this point with this particular study, I'm just going to focus on color spots and see if that is all enough that needs to be done in order to describe the scene. I need these rocks, especially since they're going to represent the areas that are going to be hit by the sunlight. What I'm doing here in the back is probably not going to be as crucial. You know, there's a few little spots on the coast in the distance that kind of might be interesting to see here in the area, how the sunlight might pick that up. And so then we have that rugged coastal line, the Costa Brava here in the back, close to where we are basically looking toward France. And I'm not too concerned about to be realistic, to copy all the things that I'm seeing. because I'm more interested in the mood, the overall impression of that setting, rather than trying to be accurate in all of the little details of the shape of the mountain range or whatever. That's really not interesting to me. So, need to look at my brushes here. I usually find that I really don't need to use a lot. So sometimes with the fine brushes it becomes a little bit more crucial that I get one that works well. Good. So what I may do is I may block in a little bit of the blue tone of the ocean to kind of get a feel where the color range is. And I'm working pretty thin here. I'm not gonna lay the, you always need to keep in mind that putting down the base layer, you don't want to work very thick right away. So I'm beginning to compare. So beginning, the values are always a little bit misleading. You know, when you have the white and you put a light value in, you know, that looks awfully dark, and it could be a little bit dark. I may have to come back and change that, but you can always only compare if you put a value next to it to determine if that value is correct. And if you know, especially if you want to have something that is lit, you know, you need to be pretty, don't mix your colors to dead. You know, that's really important. So I see that actually even here in the horizon, you always have to see what you see in the water, and the reflection is a symmetrical opposite of what you see up above. So if you look at the water, at the ocean here, the blue here is much darker because it's reflecting the blue that's further up in the sky. If it gets closer to the horizon, then it's beginning to pick up the reflection from over here, because the angle we look at it is more shallow. So we see more of this color right here, whereas here, this green is be something that's out of the screen right now, but that would be closer to above our position where we are standing. So a little bit thinking logically what's going on is also really, really helpful. You know, part of it is observation. Another part is analyzing why is something the way it is. So I may have to come back and adjust all of these values. Right now it's just starting to put in the base. And the method I'm working in painting is not necessarily the right way of doing it, or the only way to do it. You know, every artist has a certain way that they've figured out that works for them. So now that looks awfully dark, but now we have to see what it would be like if we would put the horizon or the darker shapes in. It's interesting. I mean, this is much further in the distance, and you would think that it would be more towards a reddish blue, but I see quite a bit of green in there, as if there's the sky is reflecting into the mountains there. So So be careful with mixing too many colors. If you try to get a certain color and you begin mixing 4 or 5 colors into it, then you kind of kill any color. So you have to, I have to be the same way, very careful in not over mixing my tones. So I'm seeing the mountain range, it gets much warmer. It's picking up more of the light. And then I need to knock down the value for all of everything that I'm seeing in front of it. So even so I'm not going to be concerned a lot of the little details you see here. Those little marks can be put in later if they are really, if I feel like they are really important, or they going to contribute to explain the scene a little bit better. So here the same way, everything getting a little bit closer to the left to where the sun is setting is picking up some of that atmospheric light. So I see on this range a lot more green, and I don't know if that's even showing up in the So the most important, really, one of the really most important things is getting your values correct. You know, if your colors are a little bit off, that's a lot more forgiving than not getting the values right. You know, you have to always consistently compare one shade next to the other. So I can tell that my Alkyd white is not going to give me the punch of differences. You know, if I use my regular oil, titanium white oil, the regular oil, titanium white, you know, I have a lot more, much more covering power. My mind is sometimes wandering when I'm doing that because I'm staying so focused that I'm probably, you know, started babbling, not necessarily making, I hope I still make sense. So, okay. I think at that point it would be good to block in the sky. So I'm squinting. Squinting, one of the most important things that an artist should be doing, because I'm trying to compare this value to this value, and they're relative close, except that this is more pure. So, and you know, we obviously have that, and it's probably important that I'm using the real white to do that. You can actually even mix the regular oil painting white with the Griffin or Alkyd white. If you want to do that, if you want to make the paint dry faster, but you still want to maintain some of the power of the regular oil painting white, you can use that in combination with it. So now I'm basically painting along the range here, the silhouette shape, and there's always a little bit orange. Or in this case, it's actually not orange. I would say it's more like a peach tone. I need to make sure that that stays pretty clean. So this, in the sky, we really don't have a very pure blue. It's more a tone like that. I tell you one thing, if you do a lot of plein air painting, you discover that every situation, every light situation is different. There is never going to be a formula, and that's why I encourage everybody, you need to go out and paint outdoors, because that's the best learning tool. So, okay, we're kind of getting relative close to what I want to see here. I need to, let's block those rocks in. So whatever comes to the foreground is not going to have that hazy, bluish mixing of colors in it, because the air particles mix, or you have more air particles in the distance, so everything turns more blue. But we also have a shadow here in the foreground, so that needs to be cool, but it also, on the other hand, is a little bit warm. So, so let's see how we can. I'm frequently, I'm probably with my, the camera moves a lot, but I'm often just looking at this, and I'm just and you can see that because I'm just moving my eyes. I'm looking at this, and then I'm looking at that, and I'm going back and forth, and I do it pretty quick. And I think when you do it quick, you kind of get an idea of how close are you with the value and the shade of that color. So it probably could be a little bit darker because we need to set it apart. And then I think over here it gets a little bit darker, but also more blue, because it seems to almost reflect more of the sky. I think I'm going to run out of my blue too quickly, so I need to put a little bit more ultramarine blue on my palette here. I think we are getting close in our value here. As you see, I'm not using any black, because if you're outside in nature, there really isn't any black. You're going to have everything is going to have some kind of a bounce light in it. Here and there we get pretty dark. So now you're going to be seeing that the values make a little bit more sense. And it's all about color spots rather than rendering and modeling. In a sense, it's really more about little indications and giving the impression of detail without painting and rendering the detail. So we have these crevices here. So looking at this area, that's a cool color, and it's also reflecting. It's a little bit lighter, but also, I always think about it also, it needs to have some blue in it because it's reflecting direct light from the sky. But it's not totally blue. It's kind of a mix in between. And you want to keep it a little bit of the bluish tone in order, in comparison, when you come in and put those warm spots in, they need to have a way of standing out. Need to mix a little bit green here. When I started out doing plein air painting, initially I really never intended to make a painting. You know, I was seeing it more as an opportunity to learn and not really trying to do a finished painting. And I think that's a pretty good attitude to have, because otherwise you're going to get too frustrated. You know, I mean, I'm working in a very controlled situation here right now, you know, because light doesn't change. But if you're really painting outdoors, you don't have that luxury. You know, you have to work often pretty fast. You know, you have to respond to what's happening, and you would get very, very frustrated if you try to always achieve a finished painting. You will later on, if you have done it many, many times, then, you know, things like that will automatically then happen. You know, then you're going to be seeing things that, you know, that your painting actually looks more finished, like a painting that you can actually really frame. So looking at from a distance where I'm not too far off, I need a little bit more yellow ochre, and I might need to use a little bit cadmium yellow to really punch up those highlights that I need. That even a little bit of color back there. So okay, I'm going to add a little bit yellow. It didn't want to open up from me, so. Yeah. So I'm thinking I need to even brighten this up in order to really but you want to be careful with the yellow. The yellow can make it quickly really gaudy. So I'm better off staying more in the peach range. So that was turning a little bit too yellow there. So and I want to bring that in also in the water here. because we're going to have some reflections out of that. So here we have a little bit of a reflection in the water, and it's a slightly more greenish color. So I'm thinking more in terms of color spots now and not trying to do rendering. So the rocks here, I'm seeing that the further on the top they warm up a little bit, have a different colorish, warmer tone, and I think they are picking up some of the light from the sunset. And here, the same there, pretty warm. So even here in the front, all of those shadows are actually pretty rich. So here in the foreground, that cool tone is actually quite a bit warmer. There's so many colors. It's amazing. You know, you think, oh, that's a boring picture. There's not much going on. There's a lot going on. You know, the more you work in it, you look at it, the more you see. So just a few little indication of detail. Here I need a so just a tiny bit lighter to give the impression that there's a light peeking through. I really like that little bit of a rim up there, so I want to get that. I think we have that here. Get the right value, and many times just the color is going to do it. And having a rich color next to and don't overwork it, you know, not overworking it, not fuzzing. It's really important to keep your edges crisp in order to make the color stand out. So there's a few of those reflected lights in the shadow. That's very rich. And so I needed a few more of those spots that really determine where the light possibly a little bit in the distance there. So I think that it can serve pretty well as a comparison